On this episode of the Mad Rush podcast.
It's so important to have options because when you have options, you require less of people. When I know that I'm going to be okay no matter what, I can approach this with a different mindset. Instead of there being so much at stake and the focus being want me, like me, accept me, include me, the focus can be more about what do I like? What do I want? What am I interested in? I really become empowered when I have options. And when I'm coaching and helping students and parents navigate change, when you're in a new place, in a new situation, you want to make sure you have, I like to say 3 places where you can sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, love, and work. And when approaching college and a big change, you need to make sure that at least 1 or 2 of these places are communities where you are accepted and included simply because you exist.
Welcome to the Mad Rush podcast. I'm Trisha Addix, the original sorority rush consultant. While the stories I have to share are nothing short of astonishing, this podcast goes beyond the wild client tales and sorority life. I'll be engaging with fascinating guests from both within and outside the Greek world, uncovering the surprising connections that bind us all together. Join me for a journey that's as entertaining as it is enlightening. Welcome to Mad Rush. All right, so today you guys are in for a huge treat. I am so honored that this guy has agreed to be a guest on Mad Rush. His name is Harlan Cohen. Chances are you've seen him on Instagram, but he is a New York Times bestselling author. He's a speaker and he is a beacon of advice. So listen in. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm really happy to be here.
I, of course, stalk you on Instagram, and I don't follow that many people that I am inspired by every single thing that they say. And you are the one, basically, that does. So I am, like I said, honored that you're here. I'm excited for you to share your advice with our audience. And so can you tell us about you, your story, and then we'll get into the good stuff.
Yeah. So that's very flattering. I appreciate that you enjoy everything I have to say because there are very few people in the world who do, especially at home. It's like I got 3 kids and a wife. My wife's, wonderful. My kids are great, but that's the joy of doing stuff through the internet and through like social media. It's like I get to share good stuff and you don't hear all the things in between. So today will be a day where maybe there'll be some things that I say that you won't like. You'll be like, oh, wow. Now I get the 360 of this guy.
Exactly.
Right. That's the joy of it. So, the short story is I help people to navigate change. And I focused a lot on college because it's just such a compacted change. It's a fast and furious change, a whirlwind of change, of social, emotional, physical, financial, and academic changes, all swirled up in one. And typically it hits people pretty quickly. And the people it hits are mostly teenagers who are dealing with new situations for the first time without their support systems. So I do that. I've written a bunch of books from, Dad's Expecting To, which is to help fathers to navigate the whole having a child experience, to a dating and relationship book, to another book called Win or Learn, which is really the framework of risk-taking. I do a ton of work with parents. I've been doing more and more work with parents, especially because I'm a parent of a freshman in college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I started this before I had any kids. Like my books, My Naked Roommate. So The Naked Roommate and 107 Other Issues You Might Run Into in College is a book that most people probably know me by. And that book was born before my kids.
Was it based on your roommate?
Well, I never really saw my roommate naked for a prolonged period of time. It wasn't an issue, it was more of this idea that there are so many surprises that we encounter. And when you encounter something unexpected, how do you work through that? I have a song. I used to play the guitar during live events, and I have music. Someone could search for it and find it pretty easily. But There's a song called My Roommate Stew about a naked roommate, a nudist roommate. And I sang that for the publisher when they were originally investigating the book. And they're like, wait, that's the title. We need to make it The Naked Roommate. And I'm like, perfect.
So wait, what, you decided to sing to the publisher? Like, was this when you were trying to figure out what publisher was going to publish it? What was your end game there?
Well, what happened is, we sent the book. It was a book proposal, and
Right.
and the publisher was going to do the book. Source Books said they wanted to do the book, so I was at their office, and I brought my guitar with me because it was just fun. I like entertaining people, and I sang the song "My Roommate Stew," and we were struggling on the title of the book. So the original title was like 100 students, 100 campuses, 100 tips, and that's just not too riveting. I thought it was a good title.
I'm thinking The Naked Roommate's much better, but continue.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, The Naked Roommate and 107 other issues you might run into in college. It's so much catchier. And it was this song about my roommate Stu that inspired the title of the book. And that's it's kind of in Source Books lore.
So I would imagine so. I mean, that's crazy. And I'm in that process right now. And I'm thinking maybe I'll whip out a guitar, except for I can't play one. So that would be probably a bad idea. So back up. So where'd you go to college, and what led you to doing what you do?
So I'm based in Chicago, and I started off college at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And I thought it was going to be a great experience. I'm the youngest of three kids, and my older brothers went to college. And I got there, and my roommate
Did they go to Wisconsin?
They went to Indiana University.
Okay.
So I've been visiting Indiana since I was 10 years old, because the age difference is 8 years between me and my oldest brother. So that school is really familiar. But I decided to go to Madison, and I didn't really know anyone. My roommate, I thought, was going to be my friend, and my roommate wasn't interested in being my friend. And it wasn't personal. It was just, this wasn't the relationship my roommate was interested in. And that was hard. And then I rushed several.
Did you feel like it was personal at the time, or is this in retrospect that you know this?
Well, I think anytime you have expectations and reality and expectations don't align, there's a problem.
Right.
And walking into that relationship, I really required my roommate to be my friend. Like, that was my plan. And when I talk to students about living situations, I'm very clear to say, I did it all wrong. I required my roommate to be my friend. And when you require someone who doesn't know you very well to be your friend, you are setting yourself up to be very disappointed. A friend has to invite you to share meals. A friend includes you in things they're doing on the weekends. A friend introduces you to their friends. And if you are living with someone who doesn't follow the friend expectations, you start to feel some resentment. You start to question yourself and the relationship. And this is why I really encourage students, when they're living with someone, don't look for a friend. Look for someone with the same sleeping habits, who has the same definition of clean, and can talk about things that make them uncomfortable, so that if you encounter something that is difficult, you can talk about it, because friendship is a bonus. It's not required.
That's
so, and
got
a
it.
lot of parents have this problem too, because a lot of parents, they get so worried about who their kid's going to live with. And the bigger problem isn't the person they're going to live with. The bigger problem is usually your kid, right? It's like, who's this other person going to live with, right? That's the real problem.
That should be the focus.
Yeah. Well, we can't control other people,
right?
But we can control how we approach these situations. So when I was living with this guy, his name's Scott, and I'll tell you a funny thing about Scott. So Scott, this is a fascinating story. This story rocked me this year. Okay. So I'm living with this guy. He moves out after a couple weeks, whatever.
He moved out after a couple weeks?
Yeah. He liked to get high, and I didn't do that. And that was his thing. And he then moved in with some people he can get high with. And I was really bummed, because I wanted this guy to be my friend. So, I never disliked him. It was just such a bummer, because I really needed to make friends, and that was going to be part of the plan. Well, what happened is, this fall, I got an email from someone. Keep in mind, I haven't communicated with this person in like 30 years. I don't know. It's been forever. And he said, "Hi, Harlan. This is your freshman roommate from the University of Wisconsin." And what happened is he found me. And I did a podcast about this. He found me. And the reason he found me is because his daughter was having some situation in college with her roommate, and his wife was looking for advice. So they found my books and found my parent book. And it was only after his family had done a pretty deep dive, he started to kind of put it together a little bit, being like, wait, I think I know this guy. And then he's like, oh my gosh, I'm the guy who this guy created his whole career around. Well, although it wasn't really my whole career, but so we reached out, and actually, we become really friendly. Like we're friends. We talk
30 years later.
right.
Wow.
So my first year roommate was not my friend, but the twist is now we're forming a friendship after all these years. So
Wow.
so when he says to take it personally, just to give you even more info, when he sent me that message about what was going on in his life and apologizing for, he didn't have to apologize for anything. I don't even think about it. He gave me a great story. It was fine. But what happened is he shared a PS, and he said that his his older brother, is schizophrenic. And when he was in high school, his older brother went to college and had this episode. And his life at home really became quite unstable because his brother then came home from college, and the younger brother was really, in a very difficult home environment. So when he got to college, while it looked like he was, just chilling out, he was so happy to be away from all of the chaos of his home, and getting high was his way of escaping. So he was looking
Wow.
for a break from a very uncomfortable home life. And I was this eager kid looking to make friends with someone. And we just didn't
Yeah.
align then. And
No.
and that was that. And it was fine. It was fine. I tried to get into a couple fraternities and a few fraternities, and I didn't get bids. So that was upsetting to me. I didn't have a plan on how I was going to find friends and find my way. I expected the college to create my life for me.
Right.
And what happened is that didn't work out, and my girlfriend broke up with me, my long distance girlfriend, and it was a disaster. I felt very alone and very uncomfortable, and I ended up transferring after my first year to Indiana University, and then I redid my first year at Indiana. Indiana was still hard, but I was able to get through it, and then I figured out how to really navigate change and help other people to know how to navigate change.
That is, there's such a synergy from what we do, and,
Uh-huh.
and the reason why we do it, because the whole reason I even have a business, as I sent you in my email begging you to be on, which I didn't have to beg, y'all. He was very gracious and agreed to be on, but I that was really hard for me as well. I went to Georgia from North Carolina, didn't know many people, tried to get in a sorority, it didn't work for me, and then that feeling of isolation and rejection
Yeah.
stayed with me all these years. And so I spend my days trying to make sure that doesn't happen, giving people the tools, because like you said, you're the only person that can control you, but there's a big synergy there for what we're trying to do and what you are doing, what I'm trying to do. So
Yeah, yeah. It's, I think that what hit you is something that obviously hit me too. And it's something that so many people don't anticipate and they don't have a plan for. And
right.
high schools do a really poor job of helping students to really strategize and plan for the dynamics of being in a new situation where you don't have a lot of control over how people respond to you and who invites you and who accepts you. And there isn't a lot of training with rejection, which is like, my rejection's my superpower. Like I am so trained and so great at rejection, because I have had to process so much of it. And the fortunate part is, I'm able to help others to work through that in real time. And I know you do a lot of that too.
That's didn't your wife not when you were like on a third date or something and you found out that your wife had, I don't know, swipe left, whatever,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. I don't even know what it is. She didn't pick you
Yeah.
before. That's awesome. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not awesome, but that's a
I
great
love
story
it.
too.
Yeah. It was an online dating site, and I reached out to her, and I got like an auto reject. And it was after our third date, because I met this woman at the UPS store, mailboxes, et cetera, at the time. And got her number, and we went on some dates, and it was like our third date. I saw a picture on one of her like shelves or something. It was like somewhere in our house. And I was like, wait, that's the girl from the online dating site who rejected me. And I was a little worried, like, oh, is she going to remember? It ends up she didn't even remember. It was like, it didn't even matter. She was just like clearing her inbox. And I wrote this thoughtful note. But the idea that rejection has really been the beginning of the most wonderful, meaningful relationships in my life, I think is so important. And I think for so many of us, we look at rejection as the end. And I look at it as the beginning of a really meaningful conversation, or a way to be curious and to learn, which is a scary thing, because if you're curious, when someone doesn't give you what you want, you might hear things that can hurt your feelings. So you really need to understand that you're enough and know you're enough, which is a hard thing for a lot of people to do.
Especially that age.
Incredibly difficult. Yeah. And that's why in my book, Win or Learn, and I mentioned this in The Naked Roommate as well, I talk about the universal rejection truth. And the universal rejection truth is really like the flux capacitor of mental health. It is the key of understanding this. So you could be someone who doesn't feel great about yourself, who doesn't really love yourself or like yourself. But if you're aware of the universal rejection truth, this undeniable law of nature that says not everyone and everything will always respond to me the way I always want. You could be the best, the brightest, the most deserving, but not everything will go your way. It never goes everyone's way all the time. So there's this law of nature. And when you recognize this law of nature, when you don't get into a fraternity or sorority, or your roommate isn't your best friend, or someone you love breaks up with you, you have something to help you to process through that discomfort. And it's this universal rejection truth. This idea that sometimes life is difficult, and there are things that don't make sense, and the universal rejection truth is to blame for that.
There's one of my chapters in my book is called Rejection is Redirection, because that is something that every one of my clients and everyone listening here is, like you're saying, it's a universal truth. It's going to happen at some point.
Right.
Things are not going to go your way at some point. And so having the tools to work through that it's so important.
Yeah. I mean, it's for me, it's essential. And labeling it, some people might be like, oh, I know that's true, that, things aren't always going to go my way. But when you label it and you make it this thing, and you are able to interact and process, understanding your relationship to this universal rejection truth. And, why does rejection upset us so much? And what is the reason that we have such a difficult time facing those uncomfortable truths? And I think so much of it is connected to, I'm afraid I'm not going to be enough, or I'm afraid other people are going to think something that's unfavorable about me. But then it comes down to, if somebody doesn't appreciate you and welcome you, or take the time to get to know you, you don't need to spend so much time and energy thinking about that person. That is the universal rejection truth. And there might be a time and place where you connect. And for me, what I've learned is, when I make friends, I'm not like playing pickup basketball games with guys. Like, I'm not a real like high five and bonding, guy like that. I'm a slow burn. And if you're a slow burn and you're in a recruitment situation, well, that doesn't really work well for slow burn people, right? And meaning a slow burn of like, people need to get to know me. It smolders. And eventually they either like me or they're confused by me because I'm not like everyone else. But like, and that's been my life. Like, transitions change. At first, it can be bumpy. And the more I learned that it's not that I'm bad at change, it's that I need to be more patient and intentional and have a deeper understanding of how I work and how my brain works so that when I'm navigating change, I can be set up to be my best so I can be patient and continue down a path to get where I want to go.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm writing down as fast as he can talk. And now my whole page is scribbles. Like, I'm never going to be able to figure it out. But yes, so my question is, and I get this question a lot, what advice do you have for someone who's a slow burn? I'm not a slow burn. So I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this. When you're in a situation where you can't be a slow burn in order to get what you want, what do you say then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can adapt, and I'm pretty good at going into situations and now understanding how to connect. And there are two things that I think are really important for someone who isn't always comfortable in these situations. And the first thing is to have options. It's so important to have options because when you have options, you require less of people. This idea of even aligning it to recruitment and interviewing or wanting a job or position or being a member of something. It's when I know that I'm going to be okay no matter what, I can approach this with a different mindset. Instead of there being so much at stake and the focus being want me, like me, accept me, include me, the focus can be more about what do I like? What do I want? What am I interested in? I really become empowered when I have options. So when it comes to options and when I'm coaching and helping students and parents navigate change, it's when you're in a new place, in a new situation, you want to make sure you have a couple places. I like to say 3 places where you can sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, love, and work. Sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, love, and work. And when approaching college and a big change, you need to make sure that at least 1 or 2 of these places are communities where you are accepted and included simply because you exist, where you don't have to audition, you don't have to be invited. You just show up and people say, Harlan, welcome. So if you have those options in spiritual groups, service, oriented groups, volunteering. I was at the University of Miami and I met some students who are part of the Marine Mammal Rescue Group. Anyone could show up. Another student was part of the debate club. Anyone can participate. When you have options and you're in a situation that's a little more high stakes where you have to be a little more on, it relieves a lot of the pressure because you're going to be okay no matter what. And that is true of life. It's like, if we're always so focused on one person or one organization or one employer, we end up becoming very heightened emotionally. We end up being reactive. The stakes become so high. We become a little bit desperate. We can't see things clearly. And this idea that we all live in a world of options and options give us power. So recognizing you have options. So when someone is in a high stakes or high pressure environment where they really want something really badly, knowing that you have another path and another choice, you are empowered, and it's a game changer.
That's really, really profound. And it's the answer. That's the answer. And that's the answer to it all.
Well, there's two
Yeah,
parts.
I was about to say that's number one. So I can't even imagine what number two is.
Well, you got to have options. Then the second part is you have to be you have to give yourself permission to be wildly curious. And being wildly curious, I was just doing an event the other day with some middle school students and and high school students, and students who are a little younger tend to be a little more wildly curious because they're less afraid of judgment and failure. So wildly curious means you genuinely have an interest beyond someone wanting you, and that interest of like, what type of philanthropy do you do? Where are people from? Do people join second semester or the second year? When someone's interviewing for a job, you are blessed with the presence of someone who's living an experience that you want to live. So instead of trying to impress them, it's being wildly curious and thinking, what are things that I actually want to know? What are things I want to experience? What are things that interest me based on me, as opposed to how can I be in a situation where people are going to like me and want me and look at me as the best? Again, it's total role reversal,
It really
because
is.
instead of getting people to be interested in me, well, I'm approaching a situation now genuinely wanting to learn. And people can smell that, they can feel it. When someone's talking to you from a place of genuine curiosity and genuine need and desperation.
Yes. I have people sometimes ask me, like, what am I going to be asked? And what are we going to talk about? And I always try to say that that's not the way you should approach it. You should approach it actually wanting to know with what you want to know. That
Right.
if you and that is the key to a good conversation is
Yeah.
what you want to know, rather than, okay, are they going to ask me what I did this summer? So then I'm going to have to say, come up with an answer that fits that. That's not at all the path to actual genuine learning about someone and
Yeah.
communicating. So,
Yeah.
but that's very articulate way of saying that. I don't ever know how to say that, because it's hard to explain to someone when they're in that position of wanting something so desperately. But to
Yeah.
reframe it is in that way that's also gold. So there is a number two that's just as important as number one. So those two things, those are the tenet to being a slow burn, or
I think it's
changing.
Yeah,
I mean,
a slow burn, but really anyone, when you
right.
walk into a situation and you are genuinely curious and interested to learn about someone, when they ask you a question, you can certainly answer it. But you could answer it, but there's also something to be said about the question. Like, it's such an interesting question, and I'm curious to know, what's your favorite? I and I'm happy to share mine. And I went to a really cool concert this summer that I loved. It's like, but I'm so curious if that's something that's actually important to you too, or if it's just like, just understanding the questions and just being very, I think being very real is so liberating to some people. And then here's the other thing. If who you are doesn't connect with the person who you're connecting with, like if they're intimidated or uncomfortable with someone being very real and focusing more on learning than being liked, then the universal rejection truth is like, not everyone's going to connect with you, and I'm not going to always connect with everyone. And all I can do is show up and be a loving, genuine person, and then surrender to whatever happens next, because that's not the right fit. Like, if you have to perform in order to get in, then you are always going to be performing. And that is exhausting.
Exhausting.
It's
Yes.
not, it is not, it's not something that we can keep up. It's not sustainable.
No, it's not. And that is something that for this particular situation, and I'm talking about recruitment rush,
Yeah.
if you have to perform it, or if you are focused on a sorority for the reasons, the reputation, or you want to be in a top house or whatever, and that's not a good fit for you, when you're in there, you are going to experience a world of hurt. It's just not
Yeah.
gonna, it's not, you got to concentrate on finding the best place, the best people for you,
Yeah.
because anything other than that, that's not
Yeah.
genuine, is not going to work.
Totally. And I want to just also mention, for someone who goes through this process and they do everything right, sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you want. Or sometimes your brain hasn't developed to the point where you can approach this with the mindset that's going to help you to avoid a lot of the things that we get, that we're scared of. Just the maturity. It's natural to want to be liked, and it's natural to want to be part of a group that other people like. But as we get older and evolve, hopefully we learn it's less about who likes us, and it's more about how can we align with the people who really reflect the parts of us that light us up. and and
Yes.
and that and that could take time. It's a lot of people. I mean, I rushed two fraternities. I ended up joining a fraternity in Madison and then depledged when I went to Indiana. Both of my brothers were in a fraternity at IU, so I was a legacy. So they had no choice but to accept me, and I was cool with that. And so I was in a fraternity there, but I recognize that it is it is very helpful to have that community. But I noticed a lot of people, their maybe their junior year, senior year, really spending less time,
Yes.
right? Because what they wanted became more important than being identified or being part of this group. And it was this shift of like, okay, now that I know I have my people in places, I can really focus on what I want. So the organization isn't serving me as much as it did before.
So true. And that is across the board. Every, as you mature and as it's good to have that jumping off point if that's what you want. And that, but I see it. I don't have any clients that are, I mean, very few clients who are still rah rah, senior year. They're like, moved on. They're friends with people in their majors. They're, it
Right.
just, it changes a
That's the
lot.
It's like that's the thing. People put so much emphasis on being part of these organizations. And when you are in a world where you have options, and even at schools where 25%, or I think most of the time it's maybe 10%. I know that in the South there are you know big Greek communities, but there are options. If you don't do it your first year, then a lot of times you could do it your second year.
Right.
And there are also other communities. And if you're not in that organization, you still can be part of the community in different aspects. And it's not an all or nothing. And I think that that's where people are really set up, that if I don't get in, then this is a disaster. And
Right.
in my mind, if that's your mindset, you shouldn't even be going through the process.
Agreed. Agreed. And that is, you hit the nail on the head. Of course, it's just a mindset is that's the answer. That's what you need to have, the mindset that it's not the be all end all, or you're gonna be set up to fail.
Right. And that's just for life, though. Like anything in life, when we're going after it, we need to approach this with this idea that we're going to be okay no matter what. Like we're going to find a way to be okay no matter what. And as a parent going through this, you can set yourself up to be okay no matter what. Because if you're not going to be okay, then it's going to be really hard to be a support to your child,
Right.
because they're going to look to you as being a steadying force, as Lisa D'Amour shares. Being a steadying force for your child is one of the greatest gifts because they look to you and they know it's going to be okay.
Right.
But you need to know it's going to be okay.
That's just like what struck me right then was I don't love to fly.
Yeah.
And I look at the flight attendants when there's turbulence, and I know that they're trained this. I know I'm not
Right.
the only person. But if I look at them and they're chatting away while the plane is like going all over the place,
Yeah.
then I know it's going to be okay.
Right.
And, I don't have any reason to trust them, but your kid has a reason to trust you. And if you can say to them, it's going to be okay, then
Yeah.
then the tendency is to believe that, or at least fake it till you make it,
Absolutely. And I think that's why my social media does so, it speaks to so many people, because
that's what I was going to ask you. What I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. I mean, well, because I help people to know they're going to be okay. And I'm a different voice, and because I'm not I'm not their parent, they actually hear me, because I know my kids don't hear me. It's the way our brain's constructed. It's like parents' voices fall into the dead zone.
Oh yeah.
But I know that they're going to be okay. So if I'm reassuring them and reassuring parents, they're like, okay, right, this is normal, this is natural, and this is where so many parents struggle. And I don't know if you know, I do this thing called Best First Year.
Uh-huh.
It's a online coaching program for parents and students, where I walk pretty much side by side with families from high school through the first year of college.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. I mean, I'd heard those words from you, but I didn't know what it was.
It's so cool. Yeah, I need to tell more people, but every 2 weeks I do live coaching, and there's Q&A, and I've got all these wonderful resources, and it's all about helping students to be set up for success, but really giving parents a framework so that when their students are going through these changes, a parent can know what's coming, know what's normal, and really be the best director in terms of, here's how you can get support. This is normal.
So is that something people subscribe to?
Yeah. So they could visit my website, harlancohen.com, and also they can look for Best First Year. But yeah, it's a one membership fee in the beginning of the year, and you get access for an entire year for a student and a parent. And for students, they tend to be more reactive. Like, it's when they need something and want something, I'm there for them. And for parents, it's really served as a checkpoint, and it's becoming a community so they can be supported. And what's cool is we don't use any video. It's all audio, and it's done as like a webinar format. So a student can be at a coaching session, because they're group sessions, and their parent can be there. The student can ask a question, and the parent would have no idea that it's their kid.
Wow.
Yeah. So everything is very protected, because that tends to be something that really, students sometimes get embarrassed. They don't want to upset their parents. They don't want to disappoint them. So it becomes, for my role is I become that person. I'm similar to, I'm sure, your role of, I can really tell you how I feel, because, I'm not judging anyone.
Right.
I just want you to be happy.
Yeah, that's cool. And I'm going to tell every single person that I come in contact with to sign up for that. And I love that it's not anonymous, but that you do it in that format, because that's very clearly what is needed. Because I had a client once who would call me from her closet at home because her mom wanted her, she was going to a school. I won't say what school because they'll recognize this, and the mom really wanted something for her daughter that the daughter didn't really want. And so she would call me from the closet, and, we would do calls all together. And then she would separately call me from the closet to get advice. And, I didn't love that. Can
you give me more? Like, what did the mom want that the student?
The mom wanted her to be in one of 3 sororities.
Right.
And the daughter really wanted my help trying to figure out if those were the places that she might find her people. And the mom was not having it. And so she would call me from the closet, and she ended up not pledging one of those 3 sororities. She found her people, became president of the sorority, but it was the mom's expectation for her that, so it's wildly different than what you're saying. doing with that, but it's still kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I can't say that word. Anonymity. I think that's a key thing for your best first year. I think that's
Yeah.
really great and brilliant.
Well, that's cool.
So
Yeah.
how do you come up with all these, like, this trust that, how do you, you've obviously, like, I trust you, and I've talked to you for 40 minutes, but, like, how do you figure all this stuff out? Is it just, like, how are you so brilliant, like Buddha?
You know what? It's very flattering. I was telling my son the other day, and I was being silly. I was like, I'm brilliant. And he's like, you can't say that. That's like such an egocentric thing to say. And I go, no, 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 no. I go, let me finish. I go, I'm like a slow brilliant. I say, I have to do something and I get it wrong and I do it again. And I get it wrong. I do it again and I get it wrong. And I do it again and I get it wrong. And then I do it again and I get it right. And when I get it right, I understand how I got it right because I've been so good at getting it wrong. And, I am far from a Buddha. I'm far from anything. I am not, I am, I have a therapist because, I do this, I have ADHD and for years really never felt like I was enough, really struggled. I think a lot of early in my career it was gaining affirmation and laughs and people liking me really served a deeper purpose. But as I've matured, I really I really love serving and I love helping and I love learning. So I'm not really worried about what people think anymore. And it's like
Right.
I just it doesn't. I'm not that old, but like at this point in my life, it doesn't matter. It's like
Right.
I have a lot of flaws and I have a lot of insecurities, but I also love listening and love learning. And it's that ability to listen and learn that helps me to connect the dots and be able to then make sense of difficult situations. Like, and again, it's like I don't, I'm not brilliant. Like that idea. It's like I'm a good listener,
Mm-hmm.
and I give myself permission to just be so wrong. Like it's a beautiful thing. Like I used to, even like this conversation, I used to be probably when I was in my 30s, I was like, okay, I have to show up and I have to be able to say things a certain way. And
Right.
I need to make sure that people think I'm smart and knowledgeable. And now it's like, listen, I show up and if there's something I know, I share it. And if it's something I don't know, like we live in a world now where all the information we could possibly want, or most of it, is at our fingertips.
Right.
So no one needs to know everything.
Right.
It's like you just need to know how to find the things that are important to you and just, really tune into our own light and to give ourselves permission to not always know, but to be willing to learn. And it's like that's the joy.
Yeah. That's so true. And it's so, because you're so authentically you, that's why people trust you and why we listen to you.
Isn't that wild? It's like the less you try to impress people,
Right.
the more people are impressed by you or like trust you.
Right.
It's weird.
It's because you're doing the inner work and that comes through. It shines. So
It's wild. Well, it's a long game. And for anybody out there, it's like I've been doing this for 25, I'm 51. So I've been doing this my whole adult life. I started writing an advice column out of college and it has been, it's been a really wild journey. And it takes time. Like, and that's the thing that's so unfair about recruitment, about
yes.
change. It's that there isn't a lot of time to
Right.
make mistakes.
Right.
So if you're in a situation where there isn't a lot of time to make mistakes, then instead of setting yourself up to have to do things that are such high stakes to get a certain outcome, you create the dynamics so that you can give yourself time and be patient and figure out the best path for you instead of having to cater to other people and to systems that oftentimes they're just like judgment. Like these people
Right.
don't know you.
Right.
they don't know you. No one really, they don't know you.
Right.
But yet we put so much weight into what people think of me and if they're including me. It's like, and it is an impossibility for people to get to know you.
Right.
Right. So if you surrender to that of like, no one's really going to get to know me. They're really not going to get to know me. So why don't I just give people permission to either know me or not know me and focus more on getting to know the people around me, getting to meet people. And some of the people I meet are going to be very, very guarded. And sometimes that might look fake. They're going to have layers because they're performing, or
Right.
maybe they're not comfortable with who they are, or maybe they just are in a situation where they can't let down their guard. And then there are going to be people who do. So what is it that fits? What is it that works for you? And then the other piece is when you're going through recruitment, focusing less on being wanted and focusing even more on who are the people I enjoy spending time with during recruitment.
Yes.
Because the friendships that form during recruitment can last an entire lifetime.
Yes.
Because like high pressure situations, like the way we make friends is we share experiences over time, and experiences that are deeply rooted in emotion tend to be experiences that create deeper, stronger bonds in a shorter amount of time.
Yes.
So if you look at like recruitment and pledging and those, they're built to be highly emotional. We bond. I think there are lots of ways to bond and to do it in a healthy way.
Yes.
Oh, I want to just hit on this while we still have more time. If anybody is in a situation where someone is putting pressure on them to do something unhealthy, to do something dangerous, to do something that is harmful, they can always reach out to me. I'm always happy to guide them, to reach out to the school, to help them to understand the best way to move forward. This idea of options, when you always have options and someone pressures you to do something that doesn't align with your values or who you are, even being in a fraternity sorority. This is when I used to do a lot of fraternity and sorority events. I've done a lot through like the American AFA, was it the American
IFC?
well, through the IFC, but there was a conference. There was a big
Gotcha.
conference I'd go to. But the idea of options give you power. And when I was in college, I was hazed pretty badly. And I stayed in the fraternity. And, one of the reasons I stayed is because I didn't feel like I had other options.
Right.
I didn't know what my life would be like if I wasn't there, because I didn't really know how to find my people in places. So when I'm talking to students who are going through recruitment and are members of organizations, making sure that you always have options, that you have your identity that's connected to your fraternity or sorority, but then you also have those other places. You are your identity, and your group or affiliation is one part of you, but you always need to have those other parts, because if you don't, then, and I looked at this fraternity as like an abusive relationship. I felt like I didn't have anyone else. I felt like I didn't have other places. I was ashamed and embarrassed that I put up with it. And I got through it, but I'm very passionate about there are ways to form deep and meaningful connections in a healthy, safe way. And we don't need to put up with that.
No, you're right. And guys, you're hearing this. He's in your corner. I know he says that. He's in all of our corners.
Yep.
And, I think I know he means it. He means it. If you're in a situation that you can't see a way out of it, reach out to him. Reach out to me. I'm right there for you too.
And your schools, there's always someone at your school. You reach out to the hotline. You talk to someone confidentially. You reach out to your parents. You let someone know.
That's the word I was looking for early. Confidentiality, not an anonymity. That was the word. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's important. I think there's a lot of shame and embarrassment and fear, but you reach out to those people. When I was in college, one of the parents reached out to nationals and they canceled our Hell Week. And it was the best. I didn't know who did it. I was so grateful. Oh my God.
I bet you were. I bet you were like,
hello. You. Right.
Yes.
Parents, blow the whistle. Don't tell your kids. Who cares? Right?
Yeah.
It's like they shouldn't be doing things where they're breaking the law.
Right. Exactly. And and I've had conversations with parents before, and I'm like, if you know this, and they're like, but I don't want to mess up her situation, I'm like, yeah, you got to. That's your job.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's hard, but they're difficult choices, and I know every parent wants their child to have a wonderful, meaningful, healthy, happy experience. And when there are these unexpected things that come up, it's really hard. And maybe in closing, just if there's something that's uncomfortable and if there's something that's difficult, understanding that those moments, they really become the richest, most meaningful moments in terms of just helping your child become an adult and deal with these real life situations. It's ugly, it's uncomfortable, but they learn so much more than if everything goes exactly according to plan.
Blessing of a skinned knee.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being here. I know you have elsewhere to be, but it's an honor. I think I don't need to go on and on because I know you can tell I'm very verklempt that you shared this with my audience, and I think that they are going to really get a lot out of it, as I have. And thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful to be here, and I know that you are in all your family's corners, and you want them to be happy and to find their people and places. So we're very much aligned.
Yes,
And
that's why I reached out to you. I was like,
yeah,
oh my,
cool.
yes,
So I'm happy to be a resource. And if anyone wants to stay in touch or follow up, HarlanCohen. So it's Harlan Cohen, and then Help Me Harlan on TikTok, and doing a lot of cool stuff on YouTube, long form. And then that Best First Year program is a thing I'm really, really proud of. I need to talk more about it because I just get so busy that I don't talk enough about it. But that thing is I've done it for a few years. This year, this year it's rocking. So anyway, I'm excited to be here, and it's wonderful to have this relationship with you.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Welcome to Time Out with Trisha. Because can you really give advice if you don't speak about yourself in the third person? I don't think so. This is exactly how I speak to my clients. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. Now let's get into it. Okay, so wow. My notebook is jam-packed with notes. And one of the main things that I want you guys to hear is that you are your identity. And if you are a slow burn, and you have to be in recruitment, which is nothing slow about it, I think the number one takeaway that you should have from this episode and from what I'm telling you right now is to listen. Do not go in with a speech prepared, answers prepared. If you listen, you'll make genuine connections. And if you are genuinely curious about the people, that comes through. And he said it in a much more eloquent way, but I am telling you, no one-word answers. And when someone asks you a question, ask them the same question. Reframe that in a sense. That's a great question. And of course, I'm getting all of this time out with Trisha from Harlan, our guest. But everything he said is pertinent to recruitment. So this is your time out. You just had your time out. And that's it for Time Out with Trisha. We'll see you on another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. For additional Rush tips, updates, and more, please follow me on Instagram at Rush with Confidence. If you would like to reach out to us or for more information, please email info@madrushpod.com. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry and Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Trisha Adams.